Hello, everyone. A very good day to all of you. I hope all of you are safe and well. First things first, thank you so very much for setting some time apart amidst your busy schedule and joining us for this event. It means a lot. A quick introduction about myself. My name is Vivin Satyan. I have been with Manage Engine for almost 10 years now. I work as a technology consultant, which means I talk about technology and I also talk about products. Now, today's session is going to be anywhere between 45 to 50 minutes. And we will be discussing about, the topic exploring identity and access management with AD360, right? In today's session, we are going to be focusing on 5 functions pertaining to identity and access management. Number 1 is creating identities. Number 2 is securing them. Number 3, after you have created the identities and you have secured the identities using, let's say, MFA and all of the techniques, you then have to audit their actions when they are in the infrastructure or outside your infrastructure, when they are interacting with your organization's resources. Okay, you'll have to audit their. You basically need to understand the answer to 4 vital W's, which is who, what, when, and where. So that's all about auditing. And number 1 is when they leave the organization or when there's a change in department. We'll have to, deprovision accounts, or in some cases, we'll have to, ensure that the transfer happens in such a way that there's no permission creep, right? So when when a user moves from one department to the other or is promoted, there shouldn't be any permission creep. Okay, so we'll be talking about deprovisioning identities or handling transfers into departments in a more systematic way, right? Number 5 is, in case of any accidental deletions or modifications, you always need to have, a recovery plan in place for recovering identities. Okay, it can be a mistake, a script that went haywire, deleted a couple of users, modified few, group policy settings and all that. How are you going to recover from all of that? Okay, now we are going to see all these 5 functions in the light of identity management. Okay, and I am going to be using Active Directory 360 or AD360, which is an IAM offering from Manage Engine, to explain these 5 functions. Okay. Now, do not worry, even if you have another solution already in place, you can still benefit from the session, because this is all going to be, action items that I'll be sharing all throughout the session. Okay. Now, let's look at these 5 functions one by one, starting off with the first function, which is creating identities. Okay. So we will first talk about creating identities, and then we'll move all the way up to recovering identities. Okay, first let's start with creating them. Now, when you talk about creating identities, an administrator would always want to have accounts created in multiple technology platforms in one shot. Okay, some of the common technology platforms, you have Office 365, or in other words, Microsoft 365, you have Google Workspace, you have Exchange Server, and you have your on-premise Active Directory, which has been around for almost 20 or 21 years now. Okay, so you would always, or an administrator would always prefer one-shot provisioning in the technology platforms that they have. And there are benefits to one-shot provisioning. 1, it saves time. That's very obvious. Number 2, it helps you assign the right permissions and access control levels for your users when you provision them in one shot. Okay, and how does Manage Engine AD360 help you achieve that? Okay, now we have something called templates. Okay, users of AD360 might already know this, but I'd like to explain some of the core features of the template here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you an actual template, and I'm going to show you the customizations and the logics that you have in the template. And the best part is I'm going to show you how a template can be used by a technician or a HR for creating user accounts belonging to multiple departments and job roles. Okay, we are going to have a demo on that. All right, so let me quickly jump to my virtual machine. Okay, so this is my 2012 R2 box. I have AD360 installed here. Okay, and of course, AD360 has multiple modules. I'll dive into the details of it a bit later. But for now, I'm here to explain the process of user creation. Okay, so let me first open up AD Manager. Okay, and then if you go to the Management tab, this is where all the management happens: creation, modification, deletion, managing permissions on files and folders, your GPOs, and all that. Okay. Now let's talk about templates here, because we are still in the creation process, okay? So we have two different types of templates, one for creation and the other one for modification. Now, when you look at the creation templates, okay, what happens here is there are three core features in a template. Any template that you open or you create has three core functionalities. And we're going to be talking about those three core functionalities and its functions in a short while, right? So I've already created, let's say I have 6 templates here. And for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to be using the Turkey template, okay? So the HR is going to be using this template for creating user accounts. But before that, let me explain the features. So I open up this template, all right? Now, the template has a name, and if you have multiple domains, you'll have to select the right domain. So I just have one domain configured here, and I have a small description for easy identification of templates, right? Now, this is the layout of the user creation template. From the looks of it, you will be able to, and something is very obvious here in the template, okay? The general tab is highlighted. The other tabs, exchange, remote mailbox, and other tabs are grayed out, okay? That's point number one. Point number two is within the general tab, if you take a look at the attributes here, you have the first name that's highlighted, last name is highlighted, title is highlighted, and it also has a red asterisk sign. Usually that means this is a mandatory field. And then you have the logon name, which is grayed out, okay? And then you have the full name, display name, description, and the other attributes are grayed out here. Why is that? Because I told you that this template is going to be used by the HR. Now, when this template is put to use by the HR, I don't want the HR to be able to see all these attributes and fill in all these attributes. Now, what is the HR going to do in the Exchange tab or in the Office 365 tab? Okay, so creating a template is an administrator's task. So you as an administrator create this template with all the values that you want. Okay, in the sense you go to the account tab, you key in a common password for the account, right? You key in a common password. You define the group membership, you go to the contact tab, you select the right mail servers, everything here. And what you do is you tailor make the template to suit the HR's view. So when the HR logs in, all they see is a simple form with first name, last name, and title. Okay. And how do you customize the template? How do you convert a template that has 10 different tabs to just a simple form, something that has first name, last name, and title that can be used by the HR for user creation? So that is when you have this feature called enable drag and drop. Okay, when you click enable drag and drop, the entire layout becomes customizable. Okay, so you can edit the field, make it silently active, making it silently active in the sense, so just reading the description here, this basically hides the field from user during user creation, but passes any value held by it to Active Directory and Office 365, okay? Or for that matter, even Exchange, okay? So that is silently active. You can delete a field. You can make a field mandatory without extending your Active Directory schema, right? That's the best part here. All right. Now, I told you that you can add or remove or customize however you want. This is feature number one. But remember, I also told you that this template is going to be used by my HR for creating accounts belonging to multiple job roles. Okay. Now, for example, you have IT technician, that's a job role. IT administrator is a different job role. And then you have your help desk or your HR. They are different job roles here. How can the HR use this template and fill just 3 attributes, okay, and create accounts belonging to multiple job roles? Where's the logic? Well, that is when I'll have to introduce you to something called creation rules here, okay? Now, remember that the title field is made mandatory, okay? And I have close to 10 or 15 titles here. If you just take a look at the drop-down box, some of the titles are architect, engineer, help desk technician, HR manager, IT admin for my Spain organization. And if I scroll down, I have a few more, right? You can add as many titles and departments as you want here. So this field is made mandatory using the enable drag and drop option. You have the red asterisk sign here. But what is the logic? The logic is, if you go to creation rules, you will be able to see that I already have 3 rules in place. Okay, I can add as many rules as I want. So if you have 15 departments, you can have 15 rules here. So what does a rule do? That's the question. Well, every rule that you have works based on a condition. So let me expand the first rule here. So the first rule is for creating IT technician accounts. Second one is for creating IT admin accounts. Third one, if you are recruiting a database administrator, you still need to create an account for them in Active Directory and Microsoft 365 and all the platforms, right? So every rule works based on a condition. So the condition here is, if the title is IT technician, right? Of course, you have an and an or operator here. You can add new conditions, multiple conditions here. So if the condition is true, then assign values automatically, okay? So that includes logon name, telephone number, email address, and you have another 25, 30 different attributes that you can auto-populate for your users if this condition is true, right? So description, member of, manager attribute, the PO box, state, and everything, right? So I hope you've understood the concept here. So creation rules, you can create as many rules as you want, and every rule works based on a condition. And if that condition is true, then you have the attributes, the appropriate values auto-populated for the user. So that is how, okay, the HR will be able to use one simple form with just 3 fields and create accounts belonging to multiple departments. Okay. Now let's see how this goes. Okay. Now just letting you know that the HR is going to be using AD Manager Plus, which is a module of AD360 for creating accounts. Right. Now I've already added the HR user as a part of AD Manager Plus here. Just showing you, I'm not diving into the details, but just letting you know that I've already done this. So the HR user is already a technician. And by the way, the HR does not have any rights in Active Directory. Let me quickly prove it to you. Okay, so this is the HR user that we're talking about. And the HR user does not have any right in Active Directory for creating user accounts. Okay, the HR will only be able to create user accounts in AD, Office 365, Exchange, and Google Workspace if the user logs into AD Manager Plus, right? Now, I've logged in as the administrator. So I'm going to sign out and I'm going to log in as this HR user, okay? And I'm going to show you how this HR is going to create multiple accounts. So I hit sign out. All right. Now I've configured this in a way that I want the users to be created in the Turkey OU, okay? I have multiple OUs here. So UK, USA, Vietnam, Canada, India, Turkey, and Spain. So this is for the Turkey OU, just for the sake of the demo, right? Let's log in as the HR. All right. I'm typing in my password. Now, please remember that these are Windows credentials, Windows username and password, okay? And I hit login. Now, after I log into the tool as the HR, you will see that my interface changes. I don't have any options here. All I see is just one simple option, okay? And when I go to that option, now all I see is a very simple form with just 3 attributes, okay? We'll just wait for a couple of seconds here. All right, there you go. So you see that the template is already loaded. Even if the HR tries to switch to another template, okay, you don't see any templates as the HR, right? And this template, even though it had, let's say, 10 different tabs and 50 or 100 attributes, this is now just a simple form here with first name, last name, and the title is made mandatory. So let's now create a technician, test tech, okay? The first name is test and the last name is tech. And let's choose the title. The title is going to be IT technician, okay? Let's create it. Successfully created the user. Within a couple of seconds, we have the user created in the vcorp-turkey OU, as I mentioned earlier, right? Now let's try and create an admin account using the same form, okay? Test admin, okay? This time I'm going to select a different title here. So it's not going to be IT technician, this is going to be IT administrator, okay? Create. Okay, successfully created the user. Again, a couple of seconds. vcorp-turkey. Now, the challenge is to verify whether this HR user who has no rights in Active Directory to create user accounts was able to successfully create users in the vcorp-turkey OU. Okay, that's and we have created two users belonging to two different job roles here, an admin and a tech. Okay, let's now verify. So I open up Active Directory, and right now in the Turkey OU here, I find no users. There are no items to be shown in this view. So all I do is just a quick refresh, okay? And you see that we have two users. You have test tech and you have test admin. Now from the looks of it, you see that we have different descriptions already, okay? Now let's verify whether they have all the properties that we want. I'll open up the properties of the admin account. So you see that I have all the properties already populated, okay? The address, I have the office address here. Let's say member of, I already have the right groups because this user is an admin. I have all the administrative groups auto-populated for this user, okay? So nothing more, nothing less. Now, if I open up the technician's account, I see the same thing, which is, I mean, the format is the same, but the values are different because this is a technician account. The description is different and the group membership is different. I don't find any admin groups here, though I use the same template. So I hope you get the point here, right? So this is how you can create identities in multiple technology platforms. And please bear in mind that this is not just about creating users in Active Directory. We are now talking about creating accounts in multiple technology platforms in one shot. So if you open up the Office 365 Admin Center, you will have two accounts created, okay, with the right licenses, permission levels, and everything. Same for Google Workspace. If you open up EMC, you'll have a mailbox created for this user, okay? So that's the whole idea here. So one-shot provisioning, and how can you customize the layout and then give it to your technicians? So this is point number one. Now let's move on to the second function, which is securing identities. So we are done with creating. Now we'll move on to securing identities. Okay. And then we have auditing, deleting, and deleting and recovering. Now, when you talk about securing identities, we have two layers here. Layer one is you'll have to strengthen your passwords. Layer two is after I give in my password, and if the password is right, then comes the TFA or the MFA, okay? The second layer of authentication. So how do we strengthen these two layers, okay? Which will end up securing your user identities, right? So that's the whole idea here. And even before I move forward, let me ask you a very simple question, okay? Now, how many of you listening to this webinar are still using passwords for authentication? Because I know people are talking about password-less authentication and all that, but I'd like to know how many of you are still using passwords, okay? If you're using passwords for logging into your systems or your applications, I would love to see a yes or a no. Can I have a couple of yeses or nos, just for my understanding? Right. Thank you, Andy. Andy says yes. They use password for authentication. And any of you use passwords for authentication? All right. Yes, we have yes from another user. Yes, yes, yes. Lots of yeses. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Abraham, Mario, Justin, Daryl, thank you very much. Fantastic. So I have lots of yeses here, right? Which means we are on the same boat. Okay. Of course, people are talking about passwordless and all that, but we still, majority of us still use passwords for authentication, right? Now, that is layer one. Okay, and then comes layer two, which is your MFA and all that. But how do you strengthen layer one? Number one is any tool that you use, okay, that should not disturb your existing password policies. Okay, it should sit on top of your existing policies and not, complicate things. That's very important. Number two is the tool that you use should help you prevent the use of blacklisted passwords. Okay. Number three, no matter what policy you set for your users, you should be able to be, the tool should be able to convey the password policy parameters for those users in their respective user interfaces, right? That would make life much more easier for your users. That's exactly the concept of striking the right balance between user experience and password security, right? Now, you as an administrator define a strong password policy. Now, when the users go to change the password policy, they do not know what is the expectation, right? So that's why point number three is really important. No matter what, you will have to convey your password policy parameters in the UI so that users know what your expectations are of a good password, right? Number two is strengthening multi-factor authentication, right? Now, you will have to have at least 10 different multi-factor options to pick and choose from. TOTPs and security question and answers. Not just that. So if you have more options, it'll be much more easier for you to apply those options for users belonging to several roles. Right? So a vendor, an IT administrator, and a regular employee, why should they have the same MFA techniques, or why should they have the same password levels? Policy levels. Okay, this is all about being contextual. Number two is, where are you going to apply your MFA policy? Is it just for your logins, or is it going to be also included while the reset password process or in the change password process? Are you going to apply MFA for securing your endpoint logins? Are you going to use MFA for securing application logins? Okay, I'm not saying that you'll have to use MFA anywhere and everywhere, but you are better off by using MFA. And at the same time, if you're able to give the users a good experience while using these MFA techniques, that's the win-win strategy. Okay. Now, AD360 helps you achieve that to a certain extent. I'll talk about layer one, which is the password, and then I'll move on to layer two. Okay. Now, you remember we created two users here for this Turkey OU. Okay. Now, let us say I'm an administrator, okay, and I want the users in the Turkey OU to have a password policy that is strong and that looks at various password parameters. Does not allow users to use compromised passwords and all that. So how do I do that using AD360? Well, now AD360 has this module called AD Self-Service Plus. Okay. Now I log in to the tool, right? And I go to configuration. But before that, I need to do something here. Okay. Now what I need to do is, first I need to create a policy. This policy is basically for self-service. So this policy defines or lets me as the administrator decide what self-service operations can the users in my Turkey OU be able to do. Okay. Now let me create a new policy here. So add new policy, Turkey password policy. Okay, I'm just giving it a name. And I want the users in the Turkey OU to be able to reset password. Okay, so that they don't call the help desk whenever they forget their password. Okay, if you can reset your LinkedIn's password all by yourself, why not do the same for Active Directory? Okay, so I want them to be able to reset their own password in Active Directory without logging tickets, unlock their own account, self-update information in Active Directory, and also change their password. Okay, of course, using this tool, right? So now I'll have to link this policy, right? So I'm now going to select the OUs. You can even select groups if that's your requirement. So I select the Turkey OU. Okay, what if this OU has 10 different OUs inside? Okay, now I can also do this, don't inherit child OUs. Okay, but I'll just click OK and save policy. Right now, you can see that I have two policies here, one for the domain and the other one is just for the Turkey OU. Right now, let's talk about layer 1 and layer 2 of authentication here. Okay, so what I do here is when I go to AD Self-Service Plus, okay, I'm using the demo version here, the online demo version, because it has all the new features and everything. So if you would like to play with the AD Self-Service Plus while you're listening to this session, all you need to do is just go to demo.adselfserviceplus.com, okay, if at all you're interested. Right. Now that we have defined the self-service policies, okay, now let's talk about strengthening layer 1 and layer 2. So layer 1 being passwords. So how can you strengthen your user passwords? What are the options that we have? We have something called password policy enforcer, right? And if you take a look at this password policy that you're going to apply for your Turkey users, you have 4 types of restrictions. Restrictions based on characters, restrictions based on repetition, restrictions based on pattern and length. Okay. Now, most of us are familiar with length, minimum password length and maximum password length. Most of us are familiar with passwords. Okay, you should have special characters, one uppercase, lowercase, and all that. And you're familiar with repetitions too, right? Do not allow the use of old passwords, number of old passwords to be remembered and all that. But this is something different. Restrictions based on pattern. Okay, now this is where you will be able to import a dictionary, okay, and then prevent users from using common dictionary words. Okay, now what is the benefit? What is the outcome of this? Well, when users do not use common dictionary words in their passwords, they are not, or they are less prone to dictionary-based attacks when it comes to passwords, right? Now, what if you already have a list of, let's say, 10,000 passwords that you do not want your users to be using, right? So you can very well include them in the pattern here, right? I don't want my users to be able to use this, a very common password, okay, or something like this, test at 123 or password at 123, right? So I can very well include patterns that I do not want my users to be able to use. Now, all these restrictions are in place to strengthen layer 1 of authentication, which is your password. And let me repeat, layer 1 sits on top of your existing password policy, be it Windows or Microsoft 365 or whatever it is, okay? So this password policy has nothing to do with your Active Directory domain password policy. We are not going to disturb that. This is just a strengthening layer. All right. What are the other things that we can do? So password policy enforcer helps you strengthen your passwords and everything, but how will your users know what is the policy? Maybe you have 10 different policies. Let's say one for the Turkey OU and the other one for your, for the US employees and the other one for your UK employees. But how are you going to convey these password policy parameters to your users? That's the best, that's the question here, right? Now, we have an option in AD Self-Service Plus, okay? Now, depending on the user that is logging in to the domain, we will be able to display the password policy parameters in the user interface itself. And this is a screenshot of Windows, Windows 10 endpoint. Okay. Now, a user is trying to change password here. That's very obvious. Okay. And now, if you take a look at this is a password policy, not of the domain. Okay, not of the domain. Let's be very clear here. This is the password policy that the administrator has mapped to this specific user, or let's say this user belongs to an OU or a group or whatever it is. Okay, so this becomes much more easier for the users to now set up, a strong password because they know the expectations here. Now, what if they're trying to do this from a mobile app? Okay, the AD Self-Service mobile app. Well, we displayed there too. Now let's talk about layer 2. Okay, remember I told you that there are 2 layers. Layer 1 is all about passwords. Layer 2 is about MFA, right? Multi-factor authentication. Now, how can we strengthen the MFA experience? Now, if you go to multi-factor authentication here, number 1 is choice. Okay, the authenticator setup is all about choice. How many ways can you challenge your user's identity, your users to prove the identity, right? Now, AD Self-Service Plus gives you 17 different ways that you can pick and choose from, okay, so that you can configure these authentication procedures for users to verify and then gain access to a resource, okay? Right from the basic security question and answer, to email verification, Duo Security, Azure AD MFA, TOTP, QR code, even fingerprint and Face ID authentication, right? Or if you already have a custom TOTP generator, you can also bring in the custom TOTP authenticator here. So the first one is all about choice. The second one is, where are you going to use this MFA procedure? Is it just for logins or is it for something else? Okay. What are the venues that you can protect using MFA? That is the core question here. Okay. So now we know the choice, all right? Let's say you pick 2 or 3 of them, or let's say 1. Where are you going to use it? You can have MFA at the time of password reset and account unlock operations. You can apply MFA for endpoints, in the sense for your Windows machines, Mac operating systems, and also Linux machines. MFA for OWA login. If you have Exchange and you have ECP and OWA, you can have MFA for your OWA logins as well. Now, I'm assuming that some of us are still working from our homes, so which means you connect to your corporate network using VPN, at least some of us, right? So you can have MFA enforced for VPN logins, all using one single console. So MFA for reset unlock and also MFA for endpoint logins. Okay, what about applications? I have 100+ applications in my office, and how do I enable MFA for all that? And what about logging into the AD Self-Service? You can enable MFA as you wish, all right? So I've already told you that we take care of layer 1. We also take care of layer 2. And to further strengthen layer 2, what we've done here is, or layer 1, what we've done here is, we have integrated AD Self-Service Plus with a blacklisted password repository, okay, called Have I Been Pawned? Okay, so you will be able to prevent users from setting compromised passwords because we have this third-party integration available. Right. I'm just going to show you how the 2-factor authentication for a server works. Okay? Normally, if you're an administrator and if you're trying to RDP into a server, you don't have 2-factor authentication enabled. In most cases, I'm not saying all, but most cases. But with AD Self-Service Plus, once you have enabled TFA for your, let's say, Windows machines, it can be a server or an endpoint or laptop. Okay, so this is how TFA looks for when enforced on a Windows server. Now, what you're about to see is the administrator is going to try and log in using his Windows username and password, and immediately AD Self-Service Plus kicks in with the second layer of verification. You're about to see that now. So I type in my password. I'm trying to log into a server. I hit enter. AD Self-Service Plus pops in, and then you have the verification code sent to your Gmail. I open the app, view the OTP. I type in my OTP and hit continue, and then I get access to my server, right? So this is all about strengthening layer 1 and layer 2 of authentication. I hope I've made made this concept as clear as possible, right? If you have any questions, please make use of the chat box. I'd be more than happy to answer. Now, the expectation from the administrator. All right, so we have AD Self-Service Plus that strengthens layer 1 and layer 2. Everything is taken care of. Now the administrator thinks, or the IT team thinks, let us roll out this application tomorrow and ask our employees to self-enroll so that they'll be able to, secure layer 1 and layer 2. We know what the reality is, right? Now, even if the administrators try and secure layer 1 and layer 2, the success of this procedure lies in user enrollment. How many users have adopted the solution? That's the whole idea here, right? How do you make sure that your users enroll? How do you ensure 100% enrollment of your users to a tool like AD Self-Service Plus? Okay, we have 3 modes of enrollment. You can pick and choose the one that suits you. One is you being very gentle, in the sense you send out email notifications, and 9 out of 10 times these notifications don't bear fruit. Then what you do is you can force enroll users, in the sense you have a script. As soon as the users log in, you have a logon script getting executed saying that the user needs to enroll themselves to self-service and all that. Okay. Number 3 is a very systematic way in which, if you already have your user information stored maybe in an external database or in the form of a CSV file, you auto enroll users so that they'll be able to benefit or benefit from layer 1 and layer 2 securing process, right? So onboarding users shouldn't be that difficult. Okay, all right. So far we've talked about strengthening 2 layers and how do you enroll users and all that. Let's say you have completed the enrollment process. All your 100 users or 1,000 employees have been enrolled successfully. Okay. Now let us assume that the user is trying to perform a self-service operation. The user has forgotten his or her password and they're trying to reset their password from the login screen. Okay, because when I get logged out from a computer, the only screen that I have is the Control-Alt-Delete screen, right? How am I going to reach the self-service application from the Control-Alt-Delete screen? Well, that is when we have this login clients, okay, that we can push to endpoints. Okay, we have this reset password and unlock account option that can be pushed to all your 1,000 employees. I mean, the PCs of all your 1,000 employees. Now, if you have Mac machines, we'll be able to push it there. And if you have OWA, and if you have like SharePoint login screens or Citrix web interfaces, we will be able to push our login clients so that the client, okay, will take them directly to the self-service portal where they can do the operations that I just mentioned, right? So now moving on to layer 3, I have another 10 minutes with you, so I'm just going to rush things a bit. Okay, I'm just going to give you a gist of what it is. Okay, some important items. Now, in the creation phase, we discussed about the templates, and I showed you how HR was able to create user accounts belonging to multiple job roles. In the securing phase, we discussed about layer 1 and layer 2 of authentication. Okay, how do you strengthen your passwords, and how do you have good multi-factor authentication techniques? Now, function 3 is auditing identities, right? Now, we have this module called AD Audit Plus that takes care of your Windows security auditing needs, okay? Now, AD Audit Plus is, again, another module of AD360, okay, that does Windows security auditing. So it reads information not just from your on-prem Active Directory, it also reads information from your Azure, from your member servers, workstations, Windows file servers, NetApp, and EMC systems, right? And it processes the information in close to real time, and then it displays the information to you in the form of reports and alerts, which you can view through your web browser, right? And it can even forward important events to a centralized log repository, right? Now, even though I'd like to, share or talk about all these 6 alarms, just because we are pressed for time, I'll be talking about, 2 or 3 important alarms that I want you to pay attention to, okay? Number 1 is I'm going to be talking about finding out suspicious user logon activity. Of course, we have 30 different profiles for tracking logon activity, but there's one thing that I would like to pass on to you, okay? Now, I have, embedded, a link to the Microsoft document right here. If you take a look at the source, okay? Now, this source or this website or this piece of information talks to you about, the vulnerable net logon connections, especially CVE 2020-1472, okay? Now, if you have 2008 or 2012 or 16 or 2019 Windows servers, then chances are you have this vulnerability, okay? If you have still not patched the vulnerability, you still have it, right? Now, what is the vulnerability? Well, this is a critical elevation of privilege vulnerability. Now, what can an attacker do if he scans your Windows servers and there's this vulnerability present? What's the impact? Well, an attacker can use MSNRPC, which is nothing but net logon remote procedure control, and then log in directly to the domain controller. Okay, that is an unsecure connection. And after the attacker logs into the domain controller, this vulnerability opens the door for that attacker to run, any malicious application on any device that is connected in the network. Okay, so pretty simple. Door is open. Using NRPC, I'll gain access to the domain controller and I run any malicious application. And this is applicable for all the servers, okay? And there's the Microsoft document right here. So how do you know whether you have this vulnerability in your infrastructure? Well, if you have AD audit, okay? Of course, you can scan and all that. I've given the event IDs here just in case you don't have AD audit. I've also included the event IDs that get logged in your security logs. So open up your security log and watch out for 5827 all the way to 5831. Okay, so we are talking about 5 event IDs here, okay, pertaining to a VNC, which is vulnerable net logon connection. And I'll tell you how AD Audit Plus helps you detect that. Okay, so I go to reports, right, and I use the search option here, and let's say I just type in the keyword net logon, because I do not know where the report is. Let's say I use the search option here and I hit search and I have the search results. So this is the report that I'm looking for, vulnerable net logon connection audit, right? So I'll be able to generate this report for the last 24 hours or number of days, weeks, months, quarters, or even years, okay, depending on my requirement. So I want you to select the right time period and generate this report to find out whether you have, VNC, okay? Because this is a domain controller level elevation of privilege vulnerability, and that's something serious. I'm 100% sure that most of you would have patched the vulnerability. If not, okay, it's worth generating the report. Okay, all right. Let me talk about something else here. So let's say this is my Active Directory group. Okay, I have this this group, and all of us know what this group can do, right? Domain admins. So put me or add me as a member of domain admins. I get access to the entire domain. Okay, you have 1,000 users or 10,000 users, doesn't matter. I get access to all of this. So are we really auditing the domain admins group? That's the question. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to the domain admins group. I'm going to the members. Okay, I'm going to remove a user. Let's say I remove tech user from the domain admins group. And probably I add another user. Let's call the user, or let's search for the user Brandon here. So check names. I have Brandon Curry. Okay. I'm going to add Brandon Curry. I've already added Brandon Curry here and I've removed tech user. Okay. I hit apply and okay. I also have AD Audit Plus installed in the server. Okay. Now let us see whether AD Audit Plus has captured, okay, the addition of Brandon Curry and the removal of tech user. Okay. Let's see. I'm just waiting for AD Audit Plus to load. Right. There you have AD Audit. If you take a look at the recent alert section here, it says the first alert says member tech user was removed from the domain admins group by Vivin-143. I mean, that's my username. So basically, we get answers for who, okay, who is Vivin, what tech user, okay, when I have the timestamp right here, and where is the name of the domain. So who, what, when, and where is the alert that gets raised. And I also have received an SMS text in my phone that tells me the same thing. Okay. Now, this user was removed, but what about the user that was added? What about Brandon Curry? Well, the next alert says member Brandon Curry was added to the domain admins by Vivin-143. Okay. Now, this message can be sent to all the administrators in your organization. So the point that I'm trying to drive home is when you have top level groups, please monitor them. Okay, and AD Audit Plus can help you do that in real time. And the last part, okay, this is the last part here. So the last part here is about, right? Okay, let me go back. The last part is PowerShell auditing. Okay, now all of us use PowerShell, don't we? Okay, so if you're a technician, if you're an administrator, you use PowerShell. But the problem is, are we auditing PowerShell? Most of us don't, some of us do, right? So with AD Audit, you'll be able to audit PowerShell. You have a dedicated category for process, script log, and module logging here, right? Now, let's say a user has tried an import CSV operation using PowerShell, because CSV usually means that there's a bulk modification. Okay, you don't use a CSV file for modifying one user. Okay, if it's just one user, you can maybe use ADUC directly. CSV comes into picture when you have to modify multiple users in one shot. And who did that? Well, AD manager is the name of the user who did that. When did the user do that? You have the timestamp. What was the operation, or what was the name of the command? Well, it was an import CSV command, right? Now, from where was the script executed? What's the location of the script? Well, if you scroll all the way to the right, okay, you see that you have the location of the script, C drive, test folder, and .ps1, okay? So you get the location of the script, but the devil is in the details, they say, right? So you really need to know what was in the script, okay? So this details link, okay, gives you the metadata of the script, okay? So if you just take a look at the script, you'll be able to understand its exact function and then find out whether it's legit or it's suspicious, okay? So PowerShell auditing is really, really important. Now, we've talked about manual auditing all this while. And with hundreds and thousands of events getting generated every day for your, in your Active Directory, in your Azure Active Directory, shouldn't we have some kind of machine learning involved in the process? That's exactly what we do in the Analytics tab here. Analytics takes care of all your machine learning activities. In the sense, it reads the logs and it arrives at a data model for every user in your organization. And when there's a deviation in the model, that gets flagged. Okay, so deviation in time, deviation in file activity of the user, deviation in remote, deviation in accessing a specific machine, all kinds of deviations get, flagged. Okay, and you also have risk based on such deviations here. Users connected to most assets, users last admin activity, hyperactive accounts, all that. So you just click the incident, mature it, try and understand what it is, right? So that's AD Audit Plus for you, okay? All right. So far, we've discussed about a couple of things here, okay? So I just showed you PowerShell auditing and all that, and we discussed about machine learning. And now I've covered 3 functions. Now we're entering function number 4, okay, which is deleting identities, okay. And how can you automate the process? That's the most important thing here, okay. Now, if you'd like to automate the process of either creating accounts or modifying accounts or deleting accounts, AD Manager Plus is the module to use, right? So let me quickly walk you through some of the automation capabilities of this tool, okay? And what are the things that you can automate with respect to Active Directory, Office 365, Exchange, and all that. So I go to the automation module. Now, in the automation module, you'll be able to see that you can create any automation that you want. And I just go ahead and create a new automation here, okay? And what are the tasks that you can automate? That's the question here, right? So you can pick and choose a task or a policy that you want to automate. I'll talk about the difference in a short while here. We have 20 Active Directory tasks ranging from creating users to, to deleting users, to even running a custom script, okay? So you will be able to automate 20 Active Directory tasks, 12 Microsoft 365 tasks, all right? And also you can create your own custom policy here, okay? So I have 2 policies, one for provisioning and the other one for deprovisioning here, okay? So the whole idea here is to automate the tasks that you want, okay? But let me be very clear here. I told you that you can automate a variety of things and you can also create your own logic. That's the policy part. But let me be very clear. Whenever you think about automation, we'll have to understand reality. Now, what you're seeing on the screen right now is automation in theory, okay? In theory, automation is flawless, okay? But we as administrators know automation can go wrong at times, okay? You want the automation to do something and the automation does the exact opposite, okay? So any task that you wish to automate, okay, you will have to keep this in mind that it needs to be supervised. Now, how do you supervise an automation? That's the question, okay? Now, if you are trying to automate, let's say, deprovisioning of users or creation of users, and you'd like to control the outcome of the automation, all you need to do is just enable the checkbox here, which reads implement business workflow, which is nothing but a request and approve methodology, okay? For example, if you want users who have never logged in for the last 365 days, okay, since the time of creation, to be deleted from Active Directory and Office 365 and all that, you select the task and you select the input here, okay? Input can be from one of the 200 reports that we have, but you don't want the automation to directly delete them, okay? That's when you enable the checkbox, which, triggers the workflow, okay? So as a member of the workflow, you can then decide to review, to approve, and then to execute the automation, okay? Only when the executor says yes to a request, okay, the automation takes place. All the request gets landed here in this section, okay? So the point that I'm trying to drive here is automate, but at the same time, implement some sort of supervision for crucial actions. All right. Last point, okay, recovering identities. Now, AD360 has this recovery piece, okay, that can help you back up and recover not just Active Directory, but also Azure, M365, Google Workspace, and on-premise, okay? Now, it helps you store your backup either local or you can even store it in the cloud, right? So if at all your files are infected, okay, and you'd like to recover from that infection, you can very well use the backup that you have either in the local or on the cloud to, to get back on the feet and then move forward, right? And using one tool, you'll be able to configure multiple domains, which is Active Directory domains. If it's Azure, you can configure multiple tenants. And then you can also configure multiple Exchange servers and then have your Exchange O365 and AD, Azure AD backed up and recovered. Okay. And we have multiple roles that you can assign to users using the module. Okay. This is how the module looks like. Active Directory backup and recovery, Azure, Exchange, SharePoint and OneDrive, Google Workspace, and you'll be able to delegate the backup and recovery activity to your technicians as well, just from one single UI. Okay. A quick summary of the things that we saw. AD360 is the name of the tool that has multiple modules doing multiple things here. Okay. Right from user lifecycle management to auditing to all the way to self-service and backup and recovery. Okay. So it has 6 modules. As you can see here, it has AD Manager, AD Self-Service, AD Audit, Exchange Reporter, M365 Manager Plus, which is a dedicated module for Office 365, and Recovery Manager Plus for backup and recovery. Okay. Now, even though you have multiple modules, you as an end user can pick and choose the modules that you want. You can just have 1 module, 3 modules, it's up to you, or the entire suite, right? And you just pay for the modules that you use. So you get 1 dashboard, 1 license. So if you want to add or remove modules, it gets modified in the same license file, right? So that's pretty much it from me. I hope you found the session helpful. I'm just waiting for a couple of questions from you. So if at all you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them. I'd be more than happy to answer, okay?